Welcome to the SAFE Coalition, Confronting Our Crisis. I'm Jim Derrick, co-host and creator of this program. I'm also the president of the SAFE Coalition. Dr. Ann Bergen can't be here today. The mission of this show is to bring the SAFE Coalition's mission to our community and bring up important topics regarding that mission so that we can continue this community conversation regarding substance use disorder. SAFE's broad mission is to provide education, supportive services, and access to treatment for all those impacted by substance use disorder. Today we are very, very fortunate to have a friend of mine and guest in studio, Tracie Duich. Tracie is the National Outreach Coordinator with Cornerstone Recovery Center, which features treatment for substance use and mental health disorders. Tracie has also studied marketing and psychology at the University of Florida, and most recently, a very exciting project came your way, which is Tracie's Place. Tracie's Place provides structured and safe sober living for women, and we will put a link to that website on this program. Tracie also has a lot of volunteer and advocacy efforts that she undertakes. She is a member of the United Way Commission on Substance Abuse, which includes the Action Advocacy Group and the Community Response Team. And she also sits on the Substance Use Provider Forum Board. So, Tracie, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
You are also a person in long-term recovery.
I am.
Yeah. So you have a special affinity for what you're doing.
I do, because I know firsthand the effect that the disease of addiction can have on families and loved ones. And part of my mission is to give back because of, what my own family experienced as a result of my own struggles.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know that personally, I can tell our listeners and viewers that Tracie has been a tremendous help to me and my family.
Thank you.
I met Tracie through Joanne Peterson, who runs and is the founder, executive director of Learn to Cope. You started 2 chapters down in Florida of Learn to Cope.
We have. We've been privileged to be able to be the first pilot program out of the state of Massachusetts, and we started the Fort Lauderdale chapter about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and we most recently opened in West Palm Beach.
Sure.
So
it's been quite an experience for you.
It has. It's not a household name in South Florida like it is in Massachusetts, but we're getting there. Yeah. And we're hoping to have more legislative support like you do here as well.
Sure. Just to be clear to folks that are watching, we do not, the SAFE Coalition does not endorse any one particular treatment provider, but what we do like to do is expose people to advocates like Tracie, like Joanne Peterson, and it's in that role that you're here. As I began to say, I firsthand recipient of your services in helping me with a family member down in Florida, was incredibly impressed, to say the least, with your knowledge, with your care, and the compassion that you brought to the table as we fought to get our loved one treatment. And that was my entry point to Tracie, and she was referred to me by Joanne Peterson. Learn to Cope doesn't endorse any particular treatment provider.
No, it does
so
not.
When it comes from Joanne Peterson, your name, I listened, and I'm glad I did.
Thank you.
So thank you. Can you talk to us a little bit about the environment down in Florida? There's been a lot of press, of concern about what is going on in Florida in terms of treatment, and I know you're uniquely positioned to comment on that.
Certainly. Well, it's quite unfortunate that there are there's a lot of unethical practices that have been taking place. We hope that through the efforts of some of the task force that have been formed and through the involvement of our Attorney General that we will be able to put a stop to a lot of it. We need the community's involvement, and we need the public to report anything that they see or hear or know of, including the parents of the loved ones that are there. Quite frequently, I get calls from parents out of state whose children are in or loved one are in a sober home or in a center that's in South Florida, and they are whether it be very concerned because there's no communication, whether it be for whatever reason, they're suspect of the place. So I wanted to provide also to the listeners 2 toll-free numbers for them to call, specifically for the state of Florida. One is the Florida Sober Home Task Force, which is 844-324 844-324-5463. Again, that is 844-324-5463. That particular task force can respond to any calls or inquiries regarding not only sober homes but treatment centers. If in fact you have to leave a message, I know you will get a call back. There's also another number for the Florida insurance fraud that some of the family members have been concerned about, particularly with the excessive urine billings.
Mm-hmm.
And you may or may not know that there have been recent arrests and there are more to come.
Sure.
That toll-free number is 800-378-0445. Again, 800-378-0445.
Thank you so much for that. How important it is for people to get involved. They find they have a problem with a loved one and they've been in treatment and there's been some insurance fraud. What the heck? What good is it going to do if I report it? Does it do any good?
Well, addiction is a family disease, and we want the families involved from the very beginning to throughout the whole, not only the continuum of care, but when it comes to the treatment component, not all addicts get it the first time, and there may be repeated attempts and repeated treatment admissions. So, this is your insurance. These are your hard-earned dollars, and absolutely, they need to be aware of. And then this is not just subject to the state of Florida. Let me interject that there is very good treatment in South Florida.
Right.
However, there's a lot of treatment. So to sift through the quagmire, you need to be able to know what you're dealing with, who you're dealing with, and the qualifications of the people you're dealing
Sure.
with, including the center and their certifications. And there are signposts to look for there, and there are, you want to become educated and informed as to where you're sending your loved one.
Sure. And I would argue, it's kind of a loaded question. Recently in the state of Massachusetts, we've had our Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey's office has been very, very aggressive, cracking down on doctors who are overprescribing. And we've had several parents, through Learn to Cope and others, step up to the forefront and say, you know what, I'm not going to let this go. I'm going to make a phone call. And it does work. Every single phone call mounts up.
It's no secret that it starts with the overprescribing and the lack of a PDMP, prescription drug monitoring program, at least in the state of Florida, and not only to implement it, but to maintain it.
Sure.
And that's what we're finding, that a lot of the young addicts have, historically had a sports injury, and from that point on, they're prescribed these medications and they're hooked.
Sure.
I was just reading something last night that the leading cause of death under the age of 50 is opioid overdose.
That is startling.
Mm-hmm. And that came out last night.
Absolutely incredible. So it's surpassed automobile
Absolutely.
accidents, wounds, gunshots, all of that type of statistic. It really is a national epidemic like we've never seen.
It truly is, and we're happy that Governor Scott in Florida declared a public health emergency to address our opiate epidemic in Florida.
Sure. One of the great things about having somebody positioned like you, Tracie, is that if you do call, like I did, call you, you're able to, for lack of a better word, your boot's on the ground, and you can tell us whether or not a particular treatment center, whether A, you've heard of it, B, what their certifications are, and if you haven't heard of it, you go out and find out.
Well, truly, there are plenty of people that have information, and if I don't have the answer to a question that's asked me, I certainly will find out. Mm-hmm. I've been fortunate enough to have mentors in this business, and one of which, Diane Hickey, who co-founded the Florida chapter of Learn to Cope with me, and she's got a extensive history with treatment center operations and ownership, and an impeccable reputation.
Sure.
So I've learned from the best, and that's why I'm at Cornerstone and haven't gone anywhere, because I believe in what we do. There's a sister company to Cornerstone called Our Solutions, which also does amazing clinical work, just on a smaller scale, more like a boutique-style treatment center that is different modalities,
Sure.
mainly trauma-focused.
Right.
But, whether it be an all-female program, an all-male program, a wilderness program, an adolescent program, I'm here to help navigate through the the treatment confusion, because it is confusing for a parent.
It sure is. And having been a parent in that position, I've experienced it firsthand. Being a Learn to Cope facilitator in Massachusetts, it's the number one question. First of all, is geographic treatment, is that part of the treatment, moving zip codes? I don't have the answer to that. Some say yes, some say no.
We have a saying that the addict takes themselves with them wherever they go. So the fact that they're wanting to leave the area may or may not be, a good move. However, getting away from the people, places, and things that they've been immersed in their addiction is a very good idea.
Sure.
One of the things that we're also needs to be mentioned is the continuum of care. When someone comes into treatment, there are different steps that are taken throughout the process of recovery, and starting with the detox. But as they go to treatment and then they follow up and have completed treatment, there's still more work to do. Actually, that's really, in my opinion, where the work starts.
So exiting treatment and going back out into the world to live.
Well, an effective discharge plan and strategic placement of what you're going to do and what your continuum of care will be is essential. There are coupled with a follow-up of some sort of outpatient after you finish treatment, and or of course immersion in a 12-step fellowship, if that happens to be the route you're going to go. There are different avenues for everyone, so not everyone follows that path. But whatever you do, there's also a saying, if you stay in the middle, you won't fall off the edge. And addiction is a disease of isolation. So we find that if a person gets out of treatment and they don't go to a supportive environment, their chances of success are less.
Right. We took advantage of Cornerstone. And
we're happy about that.
Found it to be, it was literally a no-brainer, having spoken to you, and we took advantage of Cornerstone. Found the clinicians to be incredibly responsive. Found a very warm, and I'm going to use the expression, maybe it's cliche, love you until you can love yourself.
Very much so.
And that is your model, right?
And we're also fortunate to have owners that are on hand at all time. And the staff, most of the staff is recovering, and most of the staff knows all the clients by their first name.
Sure.
So it's more like a family.
Right.
The addict is very broken when they come into treatment. Some of them have become very treatment savvy because they've been in and out of multiple treatment centers. So as much as we offer a very loving approach, we're very firm at the same time.
It's interesting to me, parents' expectations. When I say parents, loved ones' expectations about treatment. My expectation when I originally found that we had somebody in our family with substance use disorder is that they would enter treatment and come out 60, 90 days later, and we're all set to go. We're right back to where we started. The fact of the matter is it took 13, 14 years to get there.
Right.
And that addiction is a disease. If you look it up on the National Institute of Health, there's a disease of addiction which includes chronic,
right,
lifelong. It's a disease that has no cure at the moment. So what I didn't realize was, and I think a lot of families don't realize, is that there may not be the perfect treatment center out there for them. It's almost like looking for a college. I mean, there's a lot of very good colleges out there. There's a lot of treatment centers that do really good treatment.
There are.
And where I'm leading with this is the expectation. What if you had somebody that was new to this with their son or daughter, and they said to you, "Gee, Tracie, what is your recovery rate like at Cornerstones?" How would you answer that?
Well, the first thing I would say, and you made a lot of valid points, are that the parents are also in treatment as well as the addict.
Right.
And that's the way, at least that's the way we work with the parents and the families at Cornerstone. When the addict comes into treatment, they're coming in and their family is just as broken as they are. They've usually been a tornado that's plowed over the family, and the family has their own healing to do. So there should be, whatever treatment center you're going to should hopefully have a family program and an emphasis on dealing individually with the parents or the loved ones or the significant others of the people who are in treatment. Cornerstone happens to have a strong family program and component, sure, which includes a family night that meets twice a month, mm-hmm, that's actually open to the public, and it's on Fridays. And that information is available on our site. Also, there are family groups and support groups for parents and loved ones as well, so they can do their own recovery. Things like Learn to Cope, things like Al-Anon. I'm a big believer of both, and both of which are support networks for parents and family members of loved ones who are suffering from addiction.
Big learning moment for me. I had my recovery to pursue. My loved one had their recovery to pursue. Whether I recovered was not connected to whether he recovered.
And it's refreshing to hear you say that. Unfortunately, in the very beginning, a lot of parents can't see that. And there's a saying that you can love your child to death. But the fact of the matter is that nobody can tell a parent when they've had enough or when it's too much for them or what they need to do. That's why we strongly urge parents to go to their own support network so they can hear other parents share their experience of what they went through with their loved one and possibly encourage them to move in a certain direction or not. And just offer each other support, because you can't be there for your child unless you're strong yourself.
Right. So I've experienced that myself, and it's that old adage, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your child.
Great analogy.
If you're flapping around gasping for air, you're not going to be able to get it on your toddler.
Right.
And it really does apply. Back to the question of treatment success. You alluded to before the fact that if somebody doesn't have a solid aftercare plan while they're exiting a residential treatment facility like Cornerstone, their chances of long-term recovery go down substantially.
Absolutely. And, when I say good treatment centers, I don't like using that term, but one of the things that a parent should look for is that upon entry into the program, the discharge situation and or the step down, as we call it in the industry, should be started at that point. Where are they going to go after? What is the plan? And typically when somebody first comes into treatment, they may or may not sign a release for their parents. There are many centers that, unless they're willing to do so, they won't even admit the child. But, there's a lot of healing that needs to be done from the family unit. But regarding the step down, we strongly suggest that you don't go back home and take a breather and go into a structured environment of some sort.
There's a critical point. So I'm the parent, and I have not received any treatment, or maybe I haven't participated fully in my treatment, and out comes Johnny from treatment, and he's been away for 60, 90 days or longer. May I come home? And as a parent, the first thing you want to do is say, absolutely. Any other illness, you'd welcome them back into your home and take good care of them. Why is that a bad idea?
Well, the supportive environment for an addict in recovery may or may not take place in their own home. There may have been issues and episodes of using in that home. So those are like their old haunts. Number one. Number two, when I say that they shouldn't go home, that may or may not be never. What we suggest is that you step down to a structured environment where you're living with other people in recovery that are experiencing the same thing you are.
Right.
So that you're kind of, as you take those steps to get back into the mainstream of society, you are going through the trials and tribulations of life in a protective environment where you're accountable, where you are not going to, where you're going to be able to handle your emotions a little bit better because you're hopefully going to be held accountable to have a sponsor, to be going to meetings, or even to just be around people who are supportive that are undergoing the same journey that you are.
Sure. So we're talking about a halfway house or a sober home like Tracie's place?
That would be ideal. There are different types of sober homes and halfway houses and three-quarter homes, and there's different names for them. I know that Massachusetts has, your MASH regulatory board for the sober homes, and we have something called FAR. Unfortunately, we're not funded like your sober home regulatory board here is. We're hoping to be. And what happens is that, that is our regulatory component for sober homes.
Sure.
So we're hoping that the sober homes across the state of Florida will all become and it will be necessary for them to become FAR certified, which stands for Florida Association of Recovery Residences. And that all depends on what kind of support we can get from our legislators and our state to help us with the funding, because not only do they need to certify the actual homes they meet certain criteria,
Right.
extensive criteria, they have to maintain those standards. So that means they need to be regulated, and that takes manpower and that takes money.
It sure does. And Florida's a vast state.
It is, and there are quite a few homes. So some of the stuff that you may have heard as well is that the sober homes. It can be kind of difficult for a parent to navigate.
Yes.
Which sober home their child's going to. Is it good? Is it bad? All we can do is try to help any parent who wants help.
Well, the great thing, again, as I said, boots on the ground. When you have somebody like yourself with the professionalism that you bring to the industry,
Thank you.
With your incredible attitude of once you've taken charge of someone, then you take it to heart. And I've witnessed it firsthand and secondhand through people that I've referred you to. And so they're in very good hands. But that's why it's so important, because somebody up in Massachusetts trying to research a sober home right now without far up online yet is very, very difficult. Today we have the Massachusetts Association of Sober Home Certification.
Correct.
I believe that's what MASH stands for.
It does.
You can go to that website. It's mash.org, I believe, and you can look up the list of homes that meet the MASH certification standards. They're not yet state licensures involved in that certification, and it's kind of complicated. They still have to be licensed at a certain level, but this MASH takes it to a new level of criteria. And so that's why advocacy is so important for a parent. I know firsthand. Talk to us a little bit more about the treatment continuum, if you will. So we've talked a little bit about residential treatment, detox prior to that. So you go to detox if you need detox.
Correct. And most of the time, clearance to go into a center does require a detox of some
And you can help
sort.
facilitate with that.
Absolutely. And whether it be in Florida or any other state for that matter. But upon completion of a detox, typically someone will go to a residential program, or in Florida, what we have is the PHP, which is the day-night treatment with community housing.
Okay, so would that be similar to our intensive outpatient program?
No, very similar,
Okay.
because you can either live in the housing that is provided by the center, or you can attend daily and live at home. In an intensive outpatient program, you're not attending every day. You're attending, typically it starts with 3 days a week or 3 nights a week.
Okay, so we've gone to detox to one of these forms of residential and or outpatient care, which is intensive.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
And then the step down would be the next.
all of that is a step down process. Then the next step would be OP, which would be outpatient. In other words, wherever they go for treatment, they should be plugged into, and they should have a relationship with for at least a year afterwards,
Wow,
if not
okay.
for longer. Most of the centers that are noted throughout the country have strong alumni groups, and they all get together on an annual basis, and they meet, and they support and help each other. So that's a great piece for the client that's in treatment as well, is to know that they've always got a pipeline for where they got help, and that they can always turn to them again if they need further help.
So for a credible center, that relationship doesn't just evaporate when they leave.
Absolutely not.
That's really important to know. Really, really important. As a consumer, as somebody that cares about the long-term well-being of a resident, a client, a patient.
Well, one of the benefits of the alumni is that they have fun too.
Yeah.
One of the concerns of an addict who's getting clean or an alcoholic is that they're not going to have any more fun. So there's life after drugs, and there's fun. And I know for myself, if I didn't get clean, so that I would be bored. So I have my own journey that I went through myself, but one of the reasons that I do what I do is because, like I said, of the lost relationships and the sleepless nights I caused my own parents.
Sure.
So it's a cause after my own heart.
Sure. Well, you certainly wear it well.
Thank you.
So that continuum of care goes out at least a year, and then somebody's in their recovery plan. If they're in the 12 steps, they're continuing to go through meetings. There's regular maintenance that goes on. This is not something that you just get over.
Not at all. And there's also a lot of sayings that we have built in forgetters when you're in recovery, and that if you don't remember how bad it was, or if you fail to think that you can, if you fail to remember how bad it was, that you're likely to repeat it.
Sure.
So one of the ways you do that is you stay in the middle and you help other addicts who are struggling. And it's a way of satisfaction. It's a purpose that's given to a lot of people. There's nothing more wonderful than watching somebody who's been broken come back to life again.
Absolutely. Could we focus just a minute on Tracie's Place?
Sure.
I loved watching the launch of that.
Thank you
There
so
is not
much.
enough treatment up here anyway for women.
Well,
is that the same in Florida?
It's talking about the continuum of care. I wanted to offer a place for women to go to live where they could take pride in their surroundings. My attitude is if you're ready, you will be able to go anywhere. But I happen to feel that, from firsthand experience, I know how broken a female can be when they come into recovery, and taking pride where they live and building their self-esteem is very important.
It's a beautiful place. I mean,
yes, thank you.
I'm not an interior decorator, but I know what I like when I see it.
I had a lot of help, trust me.
Yeah. Well, it's good of you to admit. But we have the website. We'll have that posted.
Thank you so much.
And what is the website?
The website is traciesplaces.com, TRACIES. Places.com.
And you are a sober home?
We are a structured, safe, sober living for females. We're currently undergoing the FAR certification.
Terrific.
And I have a certified recovery resident manager who resides at the house.
Great.
And her job is to just oversee things. The girls are accountable. There's curfews. There are events that they do together. They go to meetings together. They shop together, and it's like a small family.
And you mentioned some other activities, kayaking.
We do. We have kayak. We're right at the 1 block away is the Tarpon River, so we kayak. We've got house kayaks, and we also have in-house yoga.
That's fantastic. And that type of integrated, holistic approach seems to really be
does.
Popularity.
Well, the disease affects the addict body, mind, and soul. So, and there's healing properties in the Florida sun. So we encourage them to get out and get active.
Sure. Well, I am really looking forward to getting down and seeing Tracie's Place.
Thank you.
Tracie's Place, yes. Myself.
Looking forward to it as well.
It looks absolutely fantastic
Thank
online. Knowing you, it is first class. And I really want to meet the staff at Cornerstones. Tracie, if somebody wants to get a hold of you personally, is there a best way? Can we
Sure.
give your phone number?
You can put my number out, and I'd be happy to give it. It's area code 561-932-2761. And if they're looking for help, they can call me at any time.
That's terrific.
I'm available.
That's terrific. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It is such a pleasure. And please, folks, we'd like you to remember that the Safe Coalition stands ready to help. We have a resource telephone line that is 508-488-8105. That telephone line is there to help you. It provides access to treatment, resources for supportive services for anybody that has substance use disorder. We also can be found on the internet at safecoalitionma.com, and we can be found on Facebook and Twitter. So for my guest Tracie Duich, I'm Jim Derrick saying thanks for watching.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors. Good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.